right, even more of this speech, comparing it to the graphic novel. Let's do it up. So, let me shrink this thing. Let's get this thing out of here. All right. So, where is the political party that will make it unnecessary to march in the streets of Birmingham? Why Birmingham, I wonder? Where is the political party that will protect the citizens of Albany, Georgia? Might say the same thing, right? Do you know that in Albany, Georgia, 9 of our leaders have been indicted, not by the Dixiecrats, but by the federal government for peaceful protest? And what did the federal government do when Albany's deputy sheriff beat attorney C.B. King and left him half dead? What did the federal government do when local police officials kicked and assaulted the pregnant wife of Slater King and she lost her baby? Ooh, right? Look at the image, and this is the lost her baby here versus the lost her baby just in plain text, right? You get that large open space of the pillars and columns behind him. It kind of speaks to that moment with a little more power, in my opinion. I think that's a contrast between the speech and the graphic novel version of the speech. To those who have said, be patient and wait, we have long said that we cannot be patient. We do not want our freedom gradually, but we want to be free now. Look at the difference here between free now here and free now here, right? Boy, we are tired. We are tired of being beaten by policemen. We are tired of seeing our people locked up and in jail over and over again, right? You might be asking, oh, who's listening? Dr. King's listening, right? So we also have our connection here between those who were trying to edit the speech versus John Lewis, who's delivering the speech, right? And then you holler, be patient. How long can we be patient? We want our freedom and we want it now. We do not want to go to jail, but we will go to jail if this is the price we must pay for love, brotherhood, and true peace, right? We don't want to go to jail, but we will go to jail. That's what we have to do for brotherhood and true peace. I appeal to all of you to get into this great revolution that is sweeping this nation. Get in and stay in the streets of every city, every village and hamlet of this nation, right? You just have to, a quick connection. Every village and hamlet is a famous part also of the I Have a Dream speech. Until the revolution of 76 is complete. We must get in this revolution and complete the revolution. For in the Delta and the Mississippi, in the Southwest Georgia, in the Black Belt of Alabama, in Harlem, in Chicago, in Detroit, Philadelphia, and all over this nation, the black masses are on the march for jobs and freedom, right? Technically, the Million Man March, that was the name of the event that day, right? Is still being his speech, right? Complete the revolution, the word revolution, which they took such issue with before he delivered the speech. They're talking about slow down and stop. Look at the passion here. Look at the passion. All of the forces of Eastland, Barnett, Wallace, and Thurman will not stop this revolution. If we do not get meaningful legislation out of this Congress, the time will come when we will not confine our marching to Washington, right? I wonder if that's the sort of thing that they were worried about earlier, right? It's sort of it's not a threat per se. It's just saying it'll be necessary because you're threatening us with violence constantly, right? And if you don't know that word confine, it means to keep. We will march through the South, through the streets of Jackson, through the streets of Danville, through the streets of Cambridge, through the streets of Birmingham. But we will march again with the spirit of love and with the spirit of dignity that we've shown here today. By the force of our demands, our determination, and our numbers, we shall splinter the segregated South into 1,000 pieces and put them together in the image of God and democracy. We must say, wake up, America, wake up, for we cannot stop and we will not stop and cannot be patient. Look at the repetition. It's called parallelism. For we cannot stop, we will not stop. Right? We will not. It sounds good. All right. You might be wondering, why would it be so necessary to march to Birmingham? There it goes again. There's our wake up underlined, sort of leaning into both versions of John Lewis there. Right? Look at the difference of the eyes there. Look at the contrast just within the graphic novel version of the speech versus the Wake Up America, right? Wake up. Right? Such a powerful contrast there. And then there's the written speech, right? And that's written, given to this crowd here, right? There's a reflecting pool, right? You might be asking, did he have it written down? He did. He had to get it approved, right? So that's what we did. We just compared and we contrasted the visual speech to the written speech, right? And here's what it looked like the day of. Here's a video version of it. I'm going to fast forward a bit.
Sixth grade education. It is dominated by politics. Every village and hamlet of this nation, until true freedom comes, until the revolution of 1776 is complete. We must get in this revolution and complete the revolution. On the Delta, Mississippi, in Southwest Georgia, in the Black Belt of Alabama, in hot put them together in the image of God and democracy. We must say, wake up, America, wake up, but we cannot stop, and we will not and cannot be patient.
Right? Then the famous speech later, I Have a Dream speech by Dr. King was given. Hear what John Lewis tells the two boys in his office. He says, Dr. King was the day's last speaker. He started slow. I'd heard him speak many times. His cadence was so familiar to me, but he found his strength, his power. He transformed the steps of the Lincoln Memorial into a modern day pulpit. His words carried through the air like arrows moving to a climactic refrain the world would never forget. In those moments, Dr. King made plain all of our hopes and aspirations. Everything we sought through the beatings and the blood, through the triumphs and the failures, everything we dared to imagine about a new America, a better America. Tell them about the dream, Martin, a dream in which each of God's children can live in a society that makes love its highest virtue, right? The last speaker, last person to give a speech. After the program was over, all of the speakers were invited to the White House to meet with President Kennedy. Good to see you. You did a good job. Thank you, Mr. President. I heard your speech. And you had a dream. It was the last time I saw President Kennedy alive. Chief, this is that sort of the wrap up of the march. I want to see that there's not a piece of paper or any dirt or filth or anything left here. Thank you, Bayard, right? This is the guy who organized it all, right? One of the most famous speeches ever given, because this guy made it possible, Bayard. Then we come back to the present when the book is taking place, January 20th, 2009. My fellow citizen says, the newly elected President Obama, I stand here today humbled by the task before us, grateful for the trust you've bestowed, mindful of the sacrifices borne by our ancestors. And then contrasted with that is a really infamous day in American history, 10:22 a.m., Sunday, September 15th, 1963, Youth Sunday. And this is in Birmingham. And you'll get a sense of what happened that day from Angela Davis, an activist. We'll start right at 3:55.
No, there would be bloodshed. After the four young girls who lived, one of them lived next door to me. I was very good friends with the sister of another one. My sister was very good friends with all three of them. My mother taught one of them in her class. My mother, in fact, when the bombing occurred, one of the mothers of uh, one of the young girls called my mother and said, can you take me down to the church to pick up Carol? We heard about the bombing, and I was like, come on. And they went down, and what did they find? They found limbs and heads strewn all over the place. And then after that, in my neighborhood, all the men organized themselves into an armed patrol. They had to take their guns and patrol our community every night because they did not want that to happen again. I mean, that's why when someone asks me about violence, I just find it incredible. What it means is that the person who's asking that question has absolutely no idea what Black people have gone through, what Black people have experienced in this country since the time the first Black person was kidnapped from the shores of Africa.
And then this is the explosion that she's referring to, that kills four little girls in 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. And that's where we sort of leave it, right, with that ambiguous ending. So you've got to figure out multimedia means a different kinds of text. music videos, written text, etc. Compare and contrast John Lewis's written speech to the same speech in March Book 2 and use evidence for the test, both tests to support your answer. All right, these are all important pieces of context about what's going on with the speech, but less important to the prompt itself. It's good to know. It's good to know about the structure and how the book sets up, how time works, and you go from 2009 back to 1963. But none of this, maybe this one a little more relevant, right, since it mentions his speech precisely, but no, nothing else, nor the misadventures that kick off any meaningful giant million person gathering. Right? And then there's unbelievable performers, but no one really knows about them or cares about much about them at the moment backstage because they're arguing over John Lewis's speech. This is important context that he had to rewrite it before they started. That he was using the experiences of black families in the Delta, the Black Belt, to inform his fiery uh, talk. But then people intercede and say maybe tone it down a little bit, and eventually he speaks with them and he says he will tone it down. All right, I'll tone it down. Can't say no to Mr. Randolph. And then he goes out to deliver the speech, for which his friends approve. And he didn't think they had to compromise too much. And then he begins to deliver it. And then here's the delivery. All of these are great ways to focus on the similarities and differences between the visual speech, this one especially, and the speech as it was just written down, right? Just on a piece of paper, right? Comparing these two pieces of media, it tells you a little bit about both, right? So everything after that is, I think that, well, this one is pretty, would probably be worth mentioning in the essay. However, the rest, meeting President Kennedy and the resulting violence against Kennedy and black families and those four black girls in Birmingham. Um, Not especially relevant to the essay, but of course relevant to American life. So, what we have here is the entire essay that you could write comparing the two, and here it is, and we'll look at that again in a moment. Um, and the speech itself, and a little word cloud there for you to kind of reference as you go along, right? You need to, after you write this essay, click on the Vocaroo link. What happens there is you click that and you talk away and you say, I'm going to do a great job in this essay. Here are all 5 paragraphs, yada, yada, yada. Boom, you got it. Then it allows you to go ahead and copy and paste that right in here. Right, you'll have to do that last, but I thought I'd show you off the jump. Okay, well, let's start by looking at the prompt and what it's telling us to do. What's the prompt telling us to do? It's saying compare and contrast John Lewis's written speech to that same speech in March book. Right? So we need to turn that into a thesis. We get rid of the opening verbs and put John Lewis's written speech is, and here I'm going to go to my what I've already written speech, and that same speech might have an important similarity and two differences, right? So that right here, right? So I'll have one paragraph about a similarity, and I'll have 2 paragraphs about differences, right? And here is one of them. Well, I'll show you the one about the similarity first. Okay. Now, Mr. Surface, would it be a good idea for me to um, take a screenshot now so I can have a copy of this to work from later? Absolutely, you can take a screenshot right now. Right? Let's take a look at this. I'm going to look at it. So you can take a screenshot now and use it. All right. But eventually you have to have your whole body paragraph here. Right? 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph. I still have 3 to go. And I thought I'd show you this. John Lewis's written speech and that same speech in March Book 2 are similar in that they share the exact same words. That right there is called a topic sentence. Right? John Lewis delivered a speech during the March on Washington in 1963. He was the sixth to speak that day. This is all context, all of this. In fact, he was writing and rewriting his speech up until the last minute because what he wrote was considered too controversial. He is pictured in March Book 2 in the graphic novel Typing. Then he steps up and begins his speech, which both his speech and Get Exciting around the same part towards the end of the speech. They're talking about slow down and stop. We will not stop. There's our quotation right there. His exact same wording shows that both the written text and the graphic novel versions are exactly the same. There's our this noun verb. Here's our conditional sentence. Our if and then will be your friend. If they had changed the words, comma, then both speeches would suffer from a lack of accuracy. This important similarity between the speech's words makes both speeches very, very authentic. Right? Yes, indeed it does. Right? And there's that word important, which you want to include in every body paragraph. So there's our broken down first body paragraph. There's a working thesis for you. You can use this word cloud here. Don't forget the Vocaroo when you're done at the end. All right, go get them. Feel free to take as many screenshots as you like.